Fish food. Right then, Hercule came too. What happened? What are we doing in the water? What's for dinner? He babbled. Before I could respond, I noticed lights on the shore. The clowns were looking for us. We hid under a pier. Too bad there was a sewer nearby. The stench was unbelievable. Footsteps thundered above us. 2 clowns stood on the pier. Their evil laughs filled the dark night. That copter sank like a brick, we heard one say. Those rodents are fish food now, another giggled. Let's tell the boss he's at the clown tower. He just got rid of the tarp that was hiding the top of the building. Hercule nudged me. So that's what the mysterious cloth-covered skyscraper was all about. It was the thief's headquarters. As soon as the clowns left, we splashed out of the water. It felt good to be on dry land. But what was that awful smell? I sniffed the air. Then it hit me. The stench was coming from my own fur. Putrid cheese puffs. I smelled like a sewer rat. An army of clowns. I was dying to wash off my fur in a nice, relaxing bubble bath, but there was no time to waste. We had work to do. We had to find Chuckles before he left town with all our stuff. Just then I remembered the clown masks we had been given at Mystery Park. I had one for me and one for Benjamin. Now I pulled both masks from my pocket. Let's put on these clown masks so no one will notice us, I told Hercule. We headed toward the center of the city. When we arrived, I choked back tears. What a dreadful sight! An army of clowns marched through the streets, stealing everything. Jewelry, television sets, video equipment, computers, food and clothing. They dragged huge sacks of money from the New Mouse City Bank. They emptied everything into clown cars. With a heavy heart, I watched as the thieves carried priceless works of art out of the National Museum. They even stole the Mona Mousa. I've read that book. They can keep it. Then they marched up the stairs to the Rodents Gazette. I couldn't watch any more. What kind of mad mouse would want to ransack a whole city? I whispered to Hercule. As we headed toward the tower, Hercule gave me the lowdown on Chuckles. This eyeball needs to get itself in gear because it is burning like the fires of Hades right now. Chuckles. Who is he? An evil clown. What does he do? Commands an army of evil clowns to rob Mouse Island. His dream, to become hilariously rich. Unusual features. He lives in an extremely tall an extremely tall tower shaped like a clown. His obsession, he collects clown shoes. His secret, he loves to knit. His strong point, he is very funny and can fool anyone, even his own grandmother. His weak point, he is very sentimental and sobs like a newborn at sad stories. What are you waiting for? At last we reached the clown tower. I saw a line of clown cars coming and going. The clowns were piling up the stolen goods, and they headed back for more. How would we get close to the tower without being noticed? What we would need is another plan, Hercule suggested. No one can grab us while we're in the air. Just then, I saw a three-wheeled contraption attached to a huge clown-faced kite. It's a motorized hang glider, Hercule squeaked. And look, those two fools are guarding it. What luck! Quietly, we scampered over to the plane. The two guards were playing Ring Around the Rosie with each other. When they finished, they collapsed. That was fun, said one of the guards. But now I'm tired. Guess the boss won't mind if we take a little snooze, said the other guard. A minute later, the two guards were snoring like babies. Hercule sprang into action. He raced over to the hang glider and turned on the motor. What are you waiting for, Geronimo? He squeaked excitedly. Climb on! Suddenly I realized what I was about to do. My paws began to shake uncontrollably. Hercule, do you know how to fly this thing? I asked. Hercule grinned gleefully. Don't be silly, Geronimo. Of course I know how to fly a glider, he said. Then he added, maybe not a real one, but I flew loads of paper gliders when I was a little mouseling. My fur turned pale. We're off! Hercule cried as the glider rose and dipped in the sky like a seasick pigeon. Hercule took a banana out of his pocket. I deserve a little snack, he announced. I gulped. I wondered if it was possible to die of fright. The Clown Tower. The hang glider lifted us higher and higher into the air. I chewed my whiskers to stop myself from screaming. Then, way down below, we spotted it. The immense statue of a clown rose from the ground. The Clown Tower. A flower on the top of the statue's hat spun around at regular intervals. It was a radar detector. It looked like Chuckles was serious about keeping away trespassers. I closed my eyes as Hercule plunked the hang glider down on the edge of the statue. Phew! The radar just missed us. He stepped gingerly away from the glider. Trying not to look down, Did I mention I'm afraid of heights? Meanwhile, Hercule was busy munching bananas. He threw the peels on the ground. I followed behind him, picking them up. One thing you should know about Hercule. He's the biggest litter bug on the block. There was a small door in the ear of the statue. We opened it. Did I mention that I really, really hate small spaces and the dark? I am without a doubt the biggest scaredy mouse on Mouse Island. The door led into a long, dark flight of stairs. It was so spooky, I was scared out of my skull. "113th floor. We came to an elevator. On the wall was a map of the tower with an inscription. You're on the 113th floor. I began to feel trapped. We have to get... I started to squeak, but Hercule interrupted me. Yes, we have to get Chuckles, he said. Hercule nudged me to the elevator, and the door slid shut behind me. He pushed a button that read 100th floor, Chuckles' office. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run to the restful rodent for a massage with cheese-scented oils. We have to get out of here, I whispered, but it was too late. Ding! The elevator had arrived on the 100th floor. The doors opened into Chuckles' office. I knew it was you! Chuckles' office looked just like the inside of a circus tent. There was a huge stage and lots of brightly colored lights. And in the center of the stage sat Chuckles. He wore white gloves, a yellow wig, and a little red hat. His blue pants were super baggy, and his yellow tie was dotted with purple polka dots. His black shoes were so oversized, I wondered how he managed to walk without falling flat on his face. We watched as Chuckles picked up something orange from a big orange pile in the corner. What was Chuckles doing? We crept closer. He was carving a pumpkin. When he finished, he looked at it with satisfaction. Then he sang a little song in a high-pitched voice. Oh, this Halloween is the best. I'll be richer than all the rest. I'll steal all of the money. Oh, aren't I funny? This Halloween is the best. What a rotten, low down, no good rat, I fumed to myself. He had stolen from all of the good mice of New Mouse City. Hadn't anyone told him that stealing is wrong? Without thinking, I let out a snort. Uh-oh. The clown heard me and screamed. Who's there? Show your face! Show your face in my place! We approached timidly, our clown masks still on our faces. He looked at us suspiciously and yelled, What's with those clothes? Why are you in those? Hercule spoke right up. Chief, we took our uniforms to the cleaners, he offered, but Chuckles didn't seem to be buying it. He stared at us skeptically. Then he pointed to me and boasted, You're dressed just like Stilton, the newspaper mouse. He thinks he's so smart, but I'll steal his whole house. I groaned inwardly. I pictured the clown ransacking my house and making off with my precious antique cheese rinds and my Encyclopedia Britannica collection. Then Chuckles pointed his paw in Hercule's face and said with a smirk, You're dressed like Parat, the detective. That's who. He's such a big snob, he belongs in a zoo. I could hear Hercule gnashing his teeth. A minute later, he whipped off his mask. I'll tell you who belongs in a zoo, clown face, Hercule shouted. Chuckles shrieked. I knew it was you! Then he jumped to his feet. It took him a little while because of the oversized shoes. Watch my show. I shivered. What could Chuckles do to us now? Chuckles let out a cruel laugh. His nose lit up when he was excited. Or maybe he had a sinus infection. It was hard to tell. He put his paws around us. Then he said, I'll let you both go if you watch my show. His show? Chuckles challenged us to a contest. He would do his act, and if we did not laugh, he would let us go. That sounded easy. After all, I considered myself an intellectual mouse with a sophisticated sense of humor. Silly clown jokes wouldn't work on me. We agreed. Chuckles began. He jumped into a little car. He pressed the horn and water squirted him in the face. Next, he pretended to trip and smack his snout on the floor. Plop. Whoopsie daisy! He turned out the lights and then he pulled a glow-in-the-dark skull from his hat. Ah! He made 1,000 funny faces. He sat on a whoopee cushion. He threw a pepper bomb that made us both sneeze. Then he threw a stink bomb, and he made a fake spider jump from his pocket. Help! Smack! Finally, Chuckles took a giant hammer and smacked Hercules in the head. My friend giggled. Then he began to laugh. I couldn't believe it. How could Hercules fall for the old rubber hammer trick? It was so silly. It was so ridiculous. Then Chuckles hit me in the head with the hammer. I burst out laughing. I couldn't help it. It was too funny. I won! Chuckles declared. I won! Poor Strawberry. I was crushed. I stopped laughing immediately and began to cry. Get a grip! Get a grip, Geronimo! Hercule ordered. I've got an idea. He told Chuckles he was challenging him to another contest. If I can make you cry, then I win, he said. Chuckles hesitated. What's the matter, clown face? You're not chicken, are you? Hercule teased. That did it. The clown rolled his eyes and said, I accept your dare. Like I really care. Hercule winked at me. Then he began his story. Once upon a time there was a teeny tiny mouse who lived in a teeny tiny house deep in the woods. One day the teeny tiny mouse was out looking for food when he spotted a huge red strawberry. He pushed and he pulled and he dragged the strawberry all the way back to his house. Then he was so tired he took a nap, dreaming of a strawberry pie. But while he was sleeping, a big hungry wolf came by. Oh, what a delicious looking gumbo meal, he said. And so he opened his great big mouth and gobbled up the strawberry and the teeny tiny mouth in one giant gulp. The end. Chuckles' lip began to quiver. Then 2 big tears slid down his cheeks. Then they rolled on the ground, sobbing uncontrollably and blowing his nose in his polka-dotted handkerchief. Poor strawberry, poor mouse, he cried. I nodded, wiping tears from my own eyes. What can I say? I'm a sensitive mouse, too. Meanwhile, Hercule made Chuckles tell us the secret password that opened the locks to the mystery park. But just as we were about to leave, Chuckles ran to a small room filled with levers and switches. He hit a few buttons, and the whole room began to rumble. You will be mine! What was happening? Was it a tornado? Was it an earthquake? Just then I realized the noise was coming from inside. The whole tower shook. Then we rose into the air. Yes, the clown tower had turned into a giant flying machine. Chuckles began to sing a little song. You can't get away from me. I need some friends, you see. And you will be mine until the end of time. Yes, you'll keep me company. Wow. Chuckles' cheese really had slipped off his cracker. Next to me, Hercule stamped his foot. "We don't want to go with you," he shouted. "You can't force someone to be your friend." Annoyed, Chuckles pressed a button. In a flash, 2 windows on which we were leaning opened. "Too bad for you," he yelled. A minute later, we found ourselves hurling into space. Maybe being forced to travel around the world with a crazed clown wasn't such a bad idea after all, I thought as my life flashed before my eyes. But then I heard something snap. Miraculously, a yellow parachute opened above us. "Good thing I listened to Granny Iron Whiskers this morning when she reminded me to take my chute." Hercule chuckled. "Yes, sorry, I never leave home without it. Help!" Party at my house. We landed outside the giant gates to Mystery Park. I punched in the password Chuckles had given us, and the gates swung open. Our friends swarmed out. Benjamin gave me a giant hug. "I knew you'd save us, Uncle Geronimo," he squeaked. "Too bad we didn't get to celebrate Halloween this year." I sighed, but then I had an idea. Who says Halloween can only be one night of the year? "Let's have a Halloween party at my house tomorrow," I told my nephew. "As my grandmother says." The next day I worked like a mad mouse getting things ready for the party. I cleaned my mouse hole from top to bottom, then made my own Halloween decorations. I drew pictures of pumpkins, ghosts, and bats on construction paper. Then I cut them out and hung them all over my house. I filled a glass pitcher with punch, labeled it vampire juice. Before I knew it, it was time for my party to begin. I wrapped myself in toilet paper. Just as I finished, the doorbell rang. Guests streamed into my house. I welcomed a monster, an alien, a zombie, and more. I must admit, some of the costumes were pretty scary. I had to remind myself that they were all my friends. Still, my knees shook every time I passed by Frankenstein, and Count Dracula's fangs were positively fur-raising. I was trying to calm my nerves when Hercule Poirot showed up. He was dressed in his usual yellow trench coat and hat. "Where's your costume?" I asked. Hercule scratched his head. "This is my costume," he said. "I'm dressed like a detective." More on that later. Then he added as